All right, that's better. I think we're live now. I'm going to go check on YouTube real quick. But if I'm not mistaken, this is our first ever live stream on YouTube. For those that might have tuned into the Doc Mock last week, obviously that was on Twitch. But I think we got YouTube working. We had to wait 24 hours. They wanted to make sure that I was an actual person and a verified account. But we should be good. If you're tuning in right away, first of all, welcome. You are a real one for being in here this early. But we're just going to check out and make sure everything is smooth sailing. I can't quite pull it up on my computer, it looks like, so I'm going to check on my phone. But it looks like we're up right now, and we are. So look at that. There we go. I'll have the chat pulled up on my phone. Looks like we've got one person in here. That might be me. But yeah, we're going to get started. Day 2 of the NFL draft. Day 1 last night was wild. I'll pull up the draft list here. We're going to talk about day 1, react to the picks live. Day 2, I've got my TV actually to the right of me. If you're watching this, you probably know me, so you've probably been to my place before. But I have 2 TVs. I have a TV in my living room and in my bedroom, and I moved the smaller one. What's up, Grant? Good to see ya. But I moved the smaller TV from my dresser, which I'm pointing over there. You can't quite see it. I'm using my computer camera, so I'm not going to move it around right now. But I moved that to the coffee table, which was in my living room. I moved the coffee table into here. So what the heck? I'll try and turn this around. But that's the setup right now. Apologize for the unmade bed. Real lack of professionalism there, I know. But so I've got the draft up, NFL Network, of course. I've got my computer up here. I've got my zero sugar root beer up here, which, let me put you on, man. These are good. But we're just going to be hanging out, talking draft, reacting to some of the news that came out today, some of the news that we thought came out today, but it turned out to just probably be a troll, as James also says hi. What's going on, James? Congrats on Dalton Kincaid yesterday. I got to admit, that was a pretty good pick. As you can see on NFL Network right there. Bills trading up for Kincaid. Looks like round 2 is about to get started. They've got all the fans gathered. I'm sure you boys are watching it on your TV right now. I'm going to try and pull up an actual list of who's been drafted so far. Draft tracker. That'd probably be good. Question for y'all watching right now. Who would you say are some of the biggest winners and losers in the draft so far? Obviously, it's only one round. A lot has happened. But I'll start. I think my winner has to be the Seattle Seahawks. They drafted really well last year. I think they drafted equally as well in round 1. And the model seems to be BPA now for them. I think their GM, I think John Schneider's still their GM, but he was on record saying, like last year, you know, the Seahawks had a bad run drafting for a while, and they sort of just said, screw it, we're going to change our model. We're going to go BPA. We're not really going to draft for need. And they ended up getting Tariq Woolen, Kenny Walker, Kobe Bryant, Charles Cross, Abraham Lucas, too, I believe. I'm going to look this up now. But just an incredible draft class. And we'll talk about who they got yesterday in a little bit. But you can really see the change in philosophy. So you get Charles Cross, Boya Mafe, Kenny Walker, Abraham Lucas, Kobe Bryant, Tariq Woolen, and Tyreek Smith. I don't know much about Tyreek Smith, but I know literally every other player that they drafted was a contributor right out of the gate. They got a lot of starters. They got someone who probably would have been Defensive Rookie of the Year in a normal year. They got a really good running back, and they really improved their O-line. And then yesterday, they make a shocking pick. As Grant says, the Steelers were a winner. I like that too. We'll talk about the Steelers after the Seahawks, because I've got a lot to say about the Steelers. Seahawks get Devon Witherspoon at 5. Great pick. You know, their corners are already pretty good. You know, the aforementioned Bryant and Woolen, but you can never have too many corners. And I think that the smaller, more aggressive Witherspoon complements Woolen well. And then another shocker, another like instance of them not really drafting for need, getting Jackson Smith and Jigba, who I think is probably the consensus wide receiver one in this class. A lot of people wanted him. James, I know you wanted him. I kind of wanted him too for the Vikings at 23. We got a wide receiver of our own, but man, you look at the wide receivers they have now, the corners they have now, and I'm just curious, where does Seattle pick here in round 2? I actually don't know. I will admit I don't know the second round as well, but I am interested. So they pick at 6 in round 2 because that was a part of the Russ trade. So they'll be on the clock pretty early here. I'm really interested to see where they go here, because they don't have too many needs per se. They can probably open themselves up to BPA again. So we'll talk about Pittsburgh, and then we'll go to the Packers because we have Caden in here now. What's going on, Caden? Good to see you. He says the Packers drafted a player. It sucked, and I feel your pain, man. It was an interesting move. I'm not going to lie. I pointed and laughed at my TV when it happened, but we'll talk about Lucas Van Ness right after we dive into the Pittsburgh Steelers, who went and got Broderick Jones at 14. And I got to say, what a move. Not only to trade up to get him, but the player they got, and it fills a need. Broderick Jones is, at worst, tackle 3 in a pretty good tackle class. He's an athletic freak. Me, James, and Grant all know pretty well how good he is. His NFL comparison, according to Lance Zerline, Andrew Thomas, who also went to UGA, and I can definitely see it, you know, big, long, strong, fast, just an absolute freak. It says here he's a former high school basketball player. And, you know, if you pull up the Pittsburgh Steelers depth chart, all of a sudden, they've got a team that's starting to look pretty good. They've made some moves this offseason. They've got a pretty young team, actually. You add Broderick Jones. They signed Isaac Seumalo, which I actually forgot about until today. All of a sudden, that left side of the line is starting to look pretty good. Mason Cole at center. As a Vikings fan, I can speak from experience. Him starting isn't ideal. James Daniels, and I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name. So the line is still a work in progress, but look at these weapons. Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Allen Robinson, who they just got, and Pat Freiermuth, and Najee Harris at running back. Now, you can say what you want about Kenny Pickett. Mixed feelings on him. I think he was better than I thought he was going to be. He had some bad games. He also had some really good games, but I think he's in a similar spot to Desmond Ridder, where you can just kind of see what you got this year. You've got a pretty good team around him. And then this defense, Larry Ogunjobi, pretty underrated player. Cam Hayward, in my opinion, a Hall of Famer. TJ Watt, probably a future Hall of Famer. Alex Highsmith was a beast last year. Patrick Peterson, another signing I kind of forgot about, who's fine. Not what he used to be, but he bounced back. Keanu Neal, Minka Fitzpatrick. Great coaching staff. I think if the Steelers were in the NFC, they might be a playoff team. It's going to be tough in the AFC, but in the NFC, I think they would be a playoff team. They could be one to watch in the AFC. And now, Caden, we'll get to your Packers here as they took Lucas Van Ness, 13th overall. Now, this was really interesting because this was a pick that they got in the Aaron Rodgers trade. They actually moved up 2 spots to get this. And I think everyone assumed it was going to be for a pass catcher. Maybe Jackson Smith and Jigba. Maybe even a tight end. Maybe even like Dalton Kincaid or Michael Mayer. And they took a defensive end, which, I don't know. I mean, you can never have too much pass rush. In a way, I get it. But there's just so many more pressing needs on this team than defense specifically, but also edge rush and a guy that has high upside but didn't start at Iowa. You know, he's got some pretty good physical tools. Iowa players are usually pretty well coached. He's a stereotypical Packers pick. Just big white farm boy. But I just don't see how they didn't go Jackson Smith-Njigba here, especially with just the kind of player he is. You lose Alan Lazard. You need a guy in the slot. I think he's going to be a monster in the slot. He would complement Christian Watson well. And this is a Packers team that really, if you add a little more juice in the pass catching, they're not bad. They will be in the thick of it for the playoff race. I'm not counting them out for the division one bit, but I just think as a Packers fan, Caden, you can tell me how it feels for you. I mean, you said it sucked, but it has got to just be so frustrating to see this every year with a GM who otherwise drafts his tail off, does a really good job building a team, but just refuses to invest in the wide receiver position. I can't explain it. This is taking a while to load. They do have some ammunition here in day 2. So maybe there's someone that they like in the second round that they can go get, like a Josh Downs, a Jalen Hyatt, a Cedric Tillman. But just to be honest with you, I really do think that a lot of teams, not just the Packers, are going to regret passing on Jackson Smith-Njigba. I don't care that he might only be a slot. A lot of players are only slots. Wes Welker was only a slot. Cooper Kupp is only a slot. Julian Edelman was only a slot. I know I could spend a lot of time just naming Patriots players. Hunter Renfrow. There is a reality in today's NFL where a slot receiver can be a legit number one on a team. And, just because he doesn't have elite 40 time, I think that's a silly reason to knock a player who, when he played, man, I get he was injured last year, but do yourself a favor. Go look at his game logs from the last season he played. It's not just the Fiesta Bowl. He was going nuclear every single week. He always got open. And he was probably, you could argue he was the best receiver on the team that also had Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. So, I don't know, man. I think teams might have overthought that one. Round 2 is open. Got to think a trade might happen. I'm with you, Grant. The Steelers have 5:36 and counting left on the clock here. There were a lot of reports coming out that they were exploring trade options, trading down here. There's some big names out on the board still, and we haven't really talked about it much. I'm going to try and open a second tab here so we can touch on that. But the obvious one is the man you see right there, Will Levis. Michael Mayer is still there. Brian Branch is still there. There's a few others I can't think off the top of my head. I'm going to pull up the prospects and we can talk about some of them. But there's some talent left to be had here in day 2. Talent that I think belonged in the first round. Caden saying, I wanted him. I get it, man. Jackson Smith-Njigba is a good player. I don't get why more people don't share that sentiment. I don't get how we dropped to 20. So, I don't know if you can filter by taken or not. Jalen Hyatt is pretty up here, which is interesting. Drew Sanders. My SEC friends know all about Drew Sanders. A lot of people in my sports media class today were talking about Drew Sanders. Brian Branch, Luke Musgrave, who, James, I know isn't your favorite, but there's at least some upside there. I'm with you, though. He's a bit of a risk. Josh Downs, one of the top receivers left. Michael Mayer, who I am just floored, didn't go round 1. Obviously, the Steelers aren't in the market for a tight end. I'm shocked the Cowboys didn't take him. Very polished tight end. Doesn't quite have the upside of Kincaid, but good blocker, good possession receiver. Notre Dame is a tight end factory. Their players are always well coached. I don't know, man. I mean, sometimes teams know stuff that we don't, and I'm not a GM, so I'm not going to hate too much. But again, another player that's like, what are we doing, man? Are we we're just looking for knocks for no reason? Steelers still on the clock here. They're taking their time. Henry in the chat now. What's going on, Henry? Henry says Brian Branch. Brian Branch, good player, man. Really good player. Keon White, too. Good shout. someone that the Packers were actually rumored to take in the first round. They ended up going with a different defensive end. But Keon White, talent out of Georgia Tech. There he is down at the bottom. Joey Porter Jr., how could I forget about him? The guy that Jack so desperately wanted, and I was kind of on board with that too. If the Steelers do make a pick here, it wouldn't shock me if it was Joey Porter Jr., not just because of the family ties. I mean, we just looked at their depth chart. They could use a corner. He's a dog, big, physical press corner. I like him. I wouldn't have been mad if the Vikings took him at 23. To be honest, I might have actually taken him over Jordan Addison, which I've warmed up to a little bit. I didn't hate it to begin with, but if you're watching an NFL Network right now, they're just showing Joey Porter Sr.'s Steelers jersey. The pick is in. They were showing a highlight package of Joey Porter Jr. I don't know, man. I think the pick might be Joey Porter Jr. here. That's my call. I'm calling my shot. What do you guys think in the chat? Who are the Steelers going with here at 32? A de facto first rounder that they got in the Chase Claypool trade. No trade, says Grant, and that's correct. Who else could they go with besides Joey Porter Jr.? Definitely don't need a receiver. They've got plenty of those. Could it be Osiris Torrance? That would be a decent pick too. They've shored up their line some. They could use help on the interior. Osiris Torrance, maybe less likely, but John Michael Schmitz. Probably the two best interior blockers in the class are still out here. Grant's saying Joey Porter. Let's hop aboard the Joey Porter train here for the Steelers. I'm liking the Joey Porter vibes. Why not, man? Bring the kid home. Played at Penn State. Won't have to move very far. Oh, been talking a lot today. I had my final Sports Source show, which, for those of you that don't know, is the UGA sports media class where you produce sports shows. And I'm not going to lie, man, I was in the studio doing my thing, and I was spitting all over the place. My mouth was so dry and yet so wet at the same time. All right, here we go. First pick of the second round. We've got, looks to be a Hall of Famer, Alan Faneka, making the pick. Former Steelers guard, Hall of Fame class of 21. And there it is. Joey Porter Jr. Good job, chat. All right, so we're 1 for 1 right now with calling the pick. Joey Porter Jr. to the Steelers. Match made in heaven. His dad played linebacker there. Steelers need cornerback help. He fits the DNA of this team. That's awesome. I'm fired up. That's a great pick, and I think I might be creeping on the Steelers bandwagon a little bit. I know Michael is happy right now, too. Michael might not be in here, one of my subscribers who also goes to UGA, Pittsburgh Steelers fan. And today he was harping for Joey Porter Jr. He wanted Joey Porter and the Porter family back in black and yellow. And he gets just that. Joey Porter Jr. to the Steelers. Let's go. That's going to put the Cardinals on the clock for the next pick, which I believe they got in a trade yesterday, right? That was part of the Houston trade, which we can talk about that. Let's talk about the Houston trade. So I'll look up the exact terms of it. But I got to say, there's a mixed reaction to this trade. And I think I'm a bit lower on it. I'm not probably the lowest, but there's nothing that just shows straight up the terms of the trade. Grant says Arizona's trying to get out of 33. Wouldn't shock me. If there's no one that they love there, maybe they wanted Joey Porter Jr. Trade down, get some more capital. But yesterday, the Texans did something wild, something I don't think I've ever seen in the draft before. They had the second overall pick, right? They took C.J. Stroud. You know, I was pretty loud when they made that pick because the whole time, you know, for the past month, the reports have been maybe they won't take a quarterback. Maybe they'll go Will Anderson. They really like Will Anderson. Well, the Texans said, why not just get both? And so after taking Stroud, which I will say this part of it was smart, they take Stroud and they tank the value of pick 3 because the Cardinals really wanted to trade down with a team that wanted Stroud. So they build up this hype the whole time that, hey, we're going to take Will Anderson. C.J. Stroud is going to be there at 3. Arizona's pick value skyrockets. And then the Texans take Stroud and tank the value. And all of a sudden, it's a little bit easier for them to trade with the Cardinals themselves and get back-to-back picks. So they go back-to-back 2 and 3. They get Stroud and Will Anderson. They get a quarterback, and they get probably the best defender in the draft. Best edge for sure. Jalen Carter's probably more talented. Will Anderson might be a slightly safer pick. Edge is usually a little bit more valuable, but they get a ridiculously productive player out of Alabama. In exchange, Arizona gets picks 12 and 33, a 2024 first, and a 2024 third. That's a lot. That is a lot of moolah to give up. So when I first reacted to it, I thought this is the worst trade ever. Why on earth would Houston do this? I did, however, remember later, I was reminded that they do have the Browns' 2024 first-round pick. But the problem with me is Houston's pick is going to be higher. And I still think that even though they got 2 good players, as it looks like Tennessee might be in at 33, according to Grant. We've got Rap Sheet talking on the TV right now. That's interesting. They might be about to get Will Levis. So we'll come back to this in a little bit. I'll apologize right off the bat. I might be all over the place. First time doing a solo stream, but we'll touch on Houston's trade with Arizona a little bit more. I don't love it. I think they gave up a lot of draft capital for a team that still needs a lot, and they got some interesting players. Tennessee's pick is already in. It's got to be Will Levis. I feel pretty confident about that. They didn't go quarterback yesterday. Round 2, Will Levis seems a lot more palatable. I think that's the right word. Palpable. It's easier to stomach. That's what I'm trying to say. It's got to be Will Levis. They're talking about Hendon Hooker on the TV right now because he went to Tennessee. I don't know about that, man. I don't love Hendon Hooker. They just called it a coin flip between Hooker or Levis. I don't know. What do you got? You guys think it's Hooker or Levis here? The Tennessee angle is interesting, but I also think that's just a dumb way to build a team. I'm sorry. I'm going to go with Levis. I got to stick with Levis. What do you guys think? There's no way, right? There's no way Hendon Hooker is the 33rd pick in the draft. There's no way teams hate Levis that much. The terms of the trade are out now, too. So Titans get the 33rd pick, and they get the 81st pick. Cardinals get 41, 72, and a 2024 third-round pick. That 2024 third, that's not a bad deal for Arizona. They move down, 8 spots? And they get a future third? That is a Cardinals W. That's not something you can say often. But ladies and gentlemen, we have just witnessed a Cardinals W. Dare I say the Cardinals have handled this draft pretty well for a team that historically has been run poorly? Grant agrees with me. He says Levis. It's got to be Levis. We're about to find out. Here comes Roger. I'm going to scream if it's Hooker. There's just no way. Yep, there we go. Will Levis. We're 2 for 2. Let's go. We're crushing it right now. Dream team. Let's go, baby. All right, Will Levis finally off the board. Poor guy left Kansas City, man. All he had to do was wait 2 more picks, and he would have been able to go up there. I can't say I blame him. I feel bad for Will Levis. He got humiliated last night, and, yeah, he looks like a villain in a Disney movie, and, well, we'll actually talk about the weirdo food stuff in a little bit, but I haven't, heard anything bad about him, maybe I'm wrong, but, I haven't heard anything about him being, a bad guy. But that man got humiliated in front of the whole country last night, and I can't blame him for wanting to leave. But you know what? He finds a home in Tennessee. Dude has to have a massive chip on his shoulder now. He's going to be ready, man. I don't know. In a weird way, I'm kind of rooting for Will Levis. I hope he does well now. Now, will he? Just from a football standpoint, that's a different conversation. But I think it'd be a cool story if Will Levis turned out in the NFL. I don't know. Grant says we know ball. Yes, we do, man. That's why we're here right now. You know, it's a Friday night, but I'm chilling here in front of my computer with my microphone, my TV to the right of me, and I'm drinking my root beer, and I'm watching the draft. And honestly, it couldn't get much better than this. It really couldn't. Shout out to the two of you in the chat right now, man. I'm having the time of my life. Lions pick is in already, too. That was quick. But one more thing on Will Levis here before we get to the Lions. So I should have done more research on this because apparently this was well documented on the internet before I found this out today. I saw Will Levis in a TCL ad. Mina Kimes was doing some interviews with draft prospects, just asking him questions. It was sponsored by TCL. And so the whole thing with mayo in the coffee with Will Levis, he doesn't actually do that like normally. That's not normally how he has his coffee. It's actually a pretty good story. So he and his girlfriend were at a hotel. They're having breakfast last year, and they couldn't find anything to mix it in the coffee. There was no cream, no sugar on the table, just a bottle of mayo. And she made the joke, "Do you think people are supposed to put this in their coffee?" And he was like, "Maybe. Let's try it out." So he tried it, said it would get a rise out of people, and then it kind of blew up into this whole thing. So he doesn't actually put he doesn't actually put mayo in his coffee. I like to think that he does, though. I think it's more fun. Lions pick is in. It might be Michael Mayer. That's my prediction. Nope, it's Sam Laporta. They go tight end, but they go Sam Laporta. What? Why do teams hate Michael Mayer? Wow. So they replace one Iowa tight end with another. And I got to admit, like, Sam Laporta's a good player. I know, James, you're really high on Sam Laporta. Wow. Okay, Sam Laporta. Let's take a look at Sam Laporta's profile as he goes to the Detroit Lions. I don't know, Grant. I really don't know why they passed on Mayer. To be honest with you, I just don't. So Sam Laporta, 6'3", 245, solid build. Iowa is tight end U. He tested fairly well. I mean, Iowa always has great tight ends. 3rd round projection. The Lions just have their own board, man. The Lions are operating on a different plane of existence than all the rest of us. And maybe they're secretly geniuses, but they have made some curious moves, to say the least, in this draft. Sam Laporta is probably... They could have gone Darnell, too, to be honest. Like, I know UGA bias or whatever, but they could have gone Darnell Washington. Sam Laporta's a fine pick. They do need tight end. Brock Wright was their tight end after they traded TJ Hawkinson, who, like, would randomly have 1 or 2 good games, but you don't necessarily want him as the Raiders come in. Hello. Las Vegas Raiders trading up for pick 35. Sam Laporta. I just don't get why Mayer hasn't gone. I feel like most people had him as tight end 1 or at least 1A, 1B with Kincaid. I don't know if it's this that's scaring everyone. Apparently he was the 15th ranked tight end in the combine. Let's see if he has an RAS. Or Raz. I don't know if it's RAS or Raz, to be honest. I've heard it's be pronounced both ways. Grant says it could be Hendon Hooker. You know, it could be. They have not gotten a quarterback. They do have Jimmy. If you have Jimmy, though, I feel like it's a better spot for a more high upside guy. It could be Hooker, though. Or I mean, how far did they trade up? They traded up with the Colts. So they trade up one, two. They traded up 3 spots. I mean, who else could it be besides Hooker? That would probably make the most sense. Oh, we can filter by undrafted. There we go. I mean, I don't think it's a wide receiver. They don't need one. Could it be Michael Mayer? They did trade Darren Waller. Could it be Mayer or Darnell? Could it be a guard? Not well versed on how the Raiders' guards are exactly. Or it just could be Hendon Hooker. Dylan Parham and Alex Bars are their guards. Let's say they could use a guard. Outside of Colton Miller, that offensive line is not very good. Oh boy. I mean, looking at this team, what else they might need? They don't need edge. Their safeties are fine, so it's probably not Brian Branch. This makes me sad. I miss you, Duke. Nate Hobbs is a good slot corner. It can't be Brian Branch. They don't really have a need for him. And I feel like the teams ahead of him wouldn't be itching to draft Brian Branch. It might be Hendon Hooker because they leapfrogged the Rams, which I think is important to note. The Rams might be in the market for a quarterback. It might be Hendon Hooker. They also released the terms of the trade, which I didn't see. I'm going to say it's Hendon Hooker. What the heck? We're about to find out. Here comes Roger. And I just had the pick spoiled for me on the computer. So I was right originally. So Michael Mayer. And note to self, don't look at this screen while the pick is in. I guess YouTube TV is delayed a little bit. So Mayer's fall finally ends at 35. And to talk about his athleticism concerns, he's not an elite athlete by any means. Now, 7.73 is not bad. I mean, statistically speaking, it is above average for the position. He's not explosive by any means. I think the real value just comes in that he's polished. He can come in right away and be a good starter, and he might catch 60 passes and be a good blocker. And so maybe that's why he's going in rounds 2, is that teams just have different expectations for him, and they kind of learned their lesson after TJ Hawkinson, because as great as Hawkinson has been, he was not worth the 8th pick. He just objectively was not, even if he stayed on the Lions. He's turned into a good player. I would argue a top 5 tight end, but there's just such a big gap between Kelsey and everyone else that as nice as good tight ends are, it's not worth that much capital. But it's not Hendon Hooker. So we're now 2 for 4. Not bad, though, honestly. You know, it's day 2 of the draft. Looks like they're going to commercial break as the Rams are on the clock. And they're on Hendon Hooker watch too. I don't think they'll pull the trigger this early on. They have bigger, more pressing needs than finding a quarterback, and that sort of was a Freudian slip in that they could go corner here. They trade Jalen Ramsey. They lose Darius Williams the year before. You know, those two were studs for them. They had a great corner duo going with those two. And so I'm wondering if it's going to be a corner, as I also get a request from James for a breakdown of Mayer versus Kincaid. Well, I'll say this. Kincaid definitely has the higher upside. He's a more explosive threat in the passing game. I think he can win on more vertical routes. He's not quite as good of a blocker as Mayer, but he's not a slouch by any means. He's a good physical player. Let's take a look at his athletic profile. I also saw something interesting yesterday from Brandon Bean. He went on the McAfee show, I think. But he was saying they were going to use Kincaid in a lot of different spots, which as a fan of football and as a fan of tight ends, that really excites me. That they're going to use Dawson Knox as a more traditional inline guy, and they're gonna kind of get weird with Kincaid. That's exciting. That is going to be interesting. So they don't have any combine testing on him, but from what little I've watched of Kincaid, he's clearly more athletic than Mayer, and he has probably a higher ceiling, definitely a higher ceiling as a receiver. And I think that for the Bills, that's exactly what they're looking for. They didn't need a more traditional, hard-nosed tight end. They needed a weapon. They needed a guy that can really make those tough catches over the middle of the field, provide some juice after the catch. And so I think that's where Kincaid comes in, and I think that's why Kincaid was a good pick. I think, James, you gave it like an A- or an A. I would have to agree. The AFC is an arms race, and Kincaid was a good piece to get. And taking out anything I feel about the Bills, 2 tight end sets with Knox and Kincaid are going to be fun. And they might even line Kincaid up as fullback some and have him run routes out of the backfield. I mean, I don't know, man. It's going to be fun. Kincaid in Buffalo is going to be fun. Mayer is interesting for the Lions, but it does kind of make sense with what they want to do. Obviously, like I've been saying, a little bit better blocker, more physical, more traditional. For a team that likes to pound the rock, and I mean, they just drafted a running back at 12 yesterday. I say that I'm here for it. I'm here for bringing running backs back. I think it was interesting how they went about it, but the picks make sense for the teams that they went to, and you can have them as 1A, 1B, depending on what you want to do. I think they both went to teams that fit them well. I am just personally shocked. Or wait. No, wait. Laporta went to the Lions, and Mayer went to the Raiders, which also makes sense. They're not as much of a, well, I say they're not as much of a running team. They literally had the leading rusher in the NFL last year in Josh Jacobs, but knowing Josh McDaniels and the success he's had with tight ends like that in the past, Gronk is the first one that comes to mind. Now, obviously Mayer's not Gronk. He's not as good of a receiver. He's not as big. He's not as much of a nightmare. Hunter Henry? A little more accurate, and Hunter Henry had some good years with McDaniels. It's not a bad fit for the Raiders. Although I will say that middle of the field is going to get crowded. Here's the Rams pick. Steve Avila. Okay. Guard out of TCU. So Cyrus Torrance is not the first guard to go. I'm going to be honest. I watched 2 TCU games the whole season. 3, actually. I watched the conference championship game. I watched part of the Michigan game. And then I watched the game that, well, TCU would probably rather I forget, but I don't think anyone's going to forget that. I don't know much about Steve Avila, to be honest. If any of you guys in the chat know anything about Steve Avila, please enlighten me. I'm going to go look at his profile. But Steve Avila goes to the Rams. They do need help up front. Their line has just not been the same. Obviously, he's a tackle, but Andrew Whitworth retiring really hurt them. They've never really had good guards to begin with, as, well, I guess he's drafted now, so that's why. So Steve Avila to the LA Rams. It's a responsible pick for a team that doesn't have a lot of draft capital and is just trying to get better. They're kind of at crossroads right now. I'm assuming that means he's going to start. If that is, in essence, their first pick. Well, it is their first pick. In essence, their first-round pick. Alaric Jackson and Logan Bruss are currently their guards. And I'm not going to lie to you, man. I do not know who either of these people are. So guard might have been a good pick for them. Brian Allen is their center. Wow, this line. Their tackles are all right. But, oh boy, that line is not good. Seahawks pick is in. Looks like it's coming up quickly. But Steve Avila to the Rams. Derek Hall to the Seahawks. So they get an edge rusher. Seahawks going defense a little bit. 2 of their first 3 picks are defense. I like it. Their edges weren't great as far as I know last year. Derek Hall out of Auburn. USCC boys might be able to help me a little bit more with this one with Derek Hall. They're doing the breakdown right now. Looks like he's a pretty good athlete. I've heard his name some. He was first team All-SEC to his credit. But the Seahawks, let's see what their depth chart is looking like. Derek Hall coming in. Young, flashy-looking defense. Seattle's building something. They've got Draymond Jones. And I guess they run... Do they run a 3-4 or 4-3? It's kind of hard to tell from this. It looks like it's a 3-4. So I don't know if that means they're going to kick him to outside linebacker. I like Uchenna Nwosu a lot, actually. I think he's very underrated. He might stick there. Would they put him at left and kick out Darnell Taylor? Possibly. Or he could come in as a rotational guy right away. They've got Boya Mafe as one of their rotation guys. I also had no idea that Devin Bush was on the Seahawks. But look at this team. They could very well find themselves back in the playoffs. Obviously, a lot of it hinges on Geno. Can he keep the Cinderella run going? But we talked about their offense. They've quickly turned their offensive line into a strength. They've got an incredible pair of young tackles. Those wide receivers are looking real nice. Kenny Walker at running back. Noah Fant, who at this point isn't, what we thought he'd be, but he's good. But we're going to put the Seahawks on hold. I'm sure Grant is on his feet right now because the Atlanta Falcons have traded up to 38, and their pick is in. All right, Grant, this one's all you, man. Who do you think the Atlanta Falcons are going here? They have a lot of possibilities here. Got to be defense, right? They went Bijan last night. You can say what you want about it. I don't hate the pick. I love the player. Man, who do you think the Atlanta Falcons are going here, Grant? I'm dying to know who do you want here out of some of these guys that are out here? Could it be John Michael Schmitz? I know you've expressed wanting a center before. Could it be an edge rusher like Keon White? They don't draft Georgia players. Maybe they draft a Georgia Tech player. Could it be Brian Branch? I don't think secondary is much of a need, so that probably wouldn't make sense. In my opinion, he's probably the best player on the board, but... could it be Osiris Torrance? Very strong line. Well, we're about to find out. Here we go. Falcons pick, and it's John Abraham making the selection. And it's Matthew Bergeron, a tackle out of Syracuse. They keep on beefing up the offensive line. Matthew Bergeron. Grant, what do you think of that pick? I'm curious. I know Jake Matthews has been just a mainstay at tackle. I don't know who your other tackle is. But Matthew Bergeron, another offensive pick for the Atlanta Falcons. Offense, offense, offense. That's been the theme so far with Atlanta and their drafts recently. Let's take a look at where he's going to slide in. If he's going to start. I would assume so. If you're trading up, you probably want him to start. Caleb McGarry and Jake Matthews. Could they move him to guard? Their line is solid. We've always known more than solid. They have a good line. Like Chris Lindstrom, one of the best linemen in the NFL. Jake Matthews, a pro. Just an absolute pro. Caleb McGarry has turned out to be good. Matt Hennessy, Drew Dahlman, solid players. That is an interesting pick. I just don't know. Like, a lineman for the Falcons. They were very busy on defense, specifically up front. They bring in Calais Campbell. They bring in David Onyemata. They bring in Bud Dupree. They bring in Jesse Bates. They bring in Jeff Okudah. Maybe this front office and coaching staff is just really high on the defense that they've brought in, as apparently my audio is out. Grant says this is the running revolution. I'm sorry about the audio. I'll try and see what I can do. So, sounds like it's still on for me. Anyone else that's watching, I don't know. Let me know if my audio is working or not. Seems like I have levels on my mic here. It sounded like it was working on my phone. I'll try and pull it up on my computer here. I'm really sorry about that, Grant, because I had a lot to say about that pick, and not necessarily bad stuff. I guess I just said that I can hear. I might say something in the chat to you, Grant, to try and figure it out. I'm assuming you're still in here, Caden. If you're the other person in here, can you hear me, Caden? Let's take a look here at what might be going on. We're gonna pull it up on my computer. Caden says works for me. Sorry about that, Grant. Hope y'all have been enjoying the stream so far. You've just been hanging out. Let me know if there's anything you want me to talk about too, as the Panthers pick comes in. They went and got Bryce Young yesterday. I feel like that was the chalk pick. You know, people could try and be fancy about Will Levis. Obviously, that's not how it quite played out, but I'll say this too. I plan on getting a little more not weird with it. I just like saying get weird with it. But at some point in the draft, like, I'm going to be honest, like, I'll be paying attention to the draft. I'm not going to have this up. If you know me, you know I love my Sporkle quizzes. And I've been dying to do some Sporkle quizzes on live. So what I'll probably do at some point within the next few picks, maybe when things die down a little bit, is I'm going to pull up some Sporkle quizzes of old NFL drafts. And we're just going to go through and try and name picks. We'll probably stick to first round, but, I mean, I'm talking like 2010, 2011, like some real throwbacks, you know, guys like Phil Taylor, Greg Little. Like, Caden asks, when do the Packers pick next? And my answer to that, my friend, is very soon. They pick at 42. It was the pick that they got from the Jets in the Rodgers trade. They pick at 42 and 45. So your Packers are going to be pretty busy here coming up soon. Panthers pick is in. Saints are technically on the clock. We're going to close out of this now so we don't get it spoiled. Grant says he got me back now. Love to hear that. Grant, you're absolutely right. The running revolution. Maybe an interesting pick. I don't know. What are your thoughts on the Falcons not going defense there and going, of all spots, O-line? You can never have too much blocking, I'll say that. Do you think that they might move him to guard, considering the tackles that you have right now? Or is he Jake Matthews' potential replacement? Because as great of a player as he's been, he's 31. He's getting older. He won't be there forever. And Caden, for your Packers, who you thinking here? It's got to be one of these. Has got to be a receiver, right? Maybe Darnell. The Packers love their Georgia players. I think you'd be happy with Darnell Washington. Here's Jonathan Stewart to make the Panthers pick. That's a real throwback. Panthers' all-time leading rusher. Interesting. Checks out. Grant says we could honestly use a left guard. Well, there you go. Jonathan You know what's crazy? I was going to say something about that. I was going to say something about Jonathan Mingo to the Panthers. It was literally just because I saw a Panthers fan I follow on Twitter today post about how he heard Jonathan Mingo was going to, quote-unquote, feed families if he went to the Panthers. And the more I thought about it, the more I liked it. Jonathan Mingo out of Ole Miss, who have done pretty good at producing wide receivers. Now, obviously, it's mostly just two big names, A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf. But if any of you guys remember Dante Moncrief, the land shark, teams really like Jonathan Mingo. I believe Elijah Moore came out of Ole Miss too. Like they've produced some good receivers in the past. And I mean, we're just going to scroll through this mess here, but definitely not wide receiver U, but underrated. Cordy Core, I don't know who that is. Laquan Treadwell, how can I forget about him? Definitely not on the good side of things. Dante Moncrief was a little underwhelming. Very talented, but didn't quite live up to his potential. Mike Wallace went to Ole Miss. Let's give Ole Miss some love for the wide receivers that they've produced. They've had a good run here recently, especially in the 2000s. I don't know if they have a good wide receiver coach or what the deal is. Dawson Knox, if you want to expand it to pass catchers. Interesting. And they go Jonathan Mingo here. Grant is saying we could honestly use a left guard. I think short-term left guard, long-term left tackle. That sounds like a pretty solid plan to me. You can have him start right away, get experience, doesn't have the pressure of being a left tackle. And then when it's time for Jake Matthews to go, you have a guy with experience at left tackle that you can slide right in. That's not a bad plan at all. I definitely am on board with that pick a little bit more now after that explanation. Saints pick is already in too. These picks have been flying, man. I will say this. One thing I kind of like about day two, like and don't like, there's pros and cons, but there's no denying the picks go so much faster. And sometimes it's fun to have the suspense build up, but when you don't know the players as well, when there's not as much hype built up, it's nice to just, here's the picks, let's keep it rolling. I'm curious who the Saints might want here at 40. They went Brian Breesy last night, which is a very Saints pick. It just is, man. They love their big interior defenders. They love making responsible picks. They're almost maybe a little too responsible. Chris Olave was a good pick last year. I mean, I'm not saying they make bad picks. They're usually pretty good drafters, but this is a defensive team now through and through. I mean, Dennis Allen is their head coach for now, at least. They got Derek Carr in a trade this year. I feel like they're probably the favorites in the NFC South, which isn't saying much because it's probably the worst division in football. But realistically, any team could win that division. And yes, I think even the Buccaneers with Baker Mayfield, if you get a decent enough Baker, if you get Rams Baker, the Bucs might win that division. That's all I'm going to say. And that's a can of worms I've opened before with you, Grant, but we'll see, man. We'll just have to see. Here's the Saints pick. Still, what do the Saints need? I mean, they have some needs. They're a fairly decent team. Isaiah Foskey. Okay, so for those that watched the Doc mock, Foskey was a player that fell a lot. And he's not fallen in real life. He's going 40th overall. Saints get an edge. That probably makes sense. Cam Jordan isn't getting any younger. They lost Trey Hendrickson a few years ago. Not a bad pick. It addresses a need for sure for the Saints. As we'll now pull up their depth chart. There's Cameron Jordan. He's still a good player, but just is not what he once was. There's Brian Breesy. Or Bresee. I've seen that name pronounced multiple ways. I've seen Breezy, Bresee. I'm sure it's Bresee. That looks right. I just can't read. But, I mean, something called Carl Granderson. They have Peyton Turner, which was a first-round pick for them back in 2021, which was an interesting pick and has not really panned out. And they doubled up with Pete Werner. They've got a good defense, specifically in the back. Marshawn Lattimore, one of the best corners in the league. I don't care what anyone says. He's got it. He's good. Demario Davis, still doing his thing, getting older. Paulson Adebo is interesting, too. He had a pretty good year. Marcus May is solid. Tyrann Mathieu is kind of washed. but he's fun, at least. I don't know. He's fun in New Orleans. They've got some weapons on offense, though. Olave, Michael Thomas, if we can get some buy-in from him, maybe for once. If he can play a full season, he would be good. They don't have as much depth. A lot of people like Rashid Shaheed, I will say. Traquan Smith is still there. Decent O-line. Ramczyk is really good. Derek Carr is probably the best QB in the division. Kamara, who's injured. I like him. Pairing him with Jamal Williams, though. We'll see if Kamara plays or not. He might get suspended for something he did in Las Vegas. Nothing good ever seems to happen there, does it? I don't know, man. Something about NFL players in Vegas. But on to the next pick now. We're almost to your Packers, Caden. In fact, they're actually on the clock. Cardinals pick is in. They got this from trading down earlier. Now we've got the Packers, Jets, Colts, Packers. And I think, looking at this board, maybe after the second Packers pick, we're going to switch over to some quizzes. And we're going to play some quizzes. Have fun with it. We'll still be talking draft. Don't worry. I'll still have the draft on. We'll still be talking about the picks, but just a little something to break it up a little bit. You know, this is nice. Almost like an opposite appetizer. Like the quizzes are the appetizer, but they're coming after the main course, if that makes sense. But I'll be hanging out here for a few hours. I'll have to call tonight at some point. Probably around 9, maybe. But we've still got another solid hour here that we can just hang out and do whatever. And thank you guys for tuning in so much. It does mean a lot to me that y'all are giving your time to just hang out here with me and tune into the draft, man. I don't know. I love the draft. I love football, and it's just another way we can stay connected to the game. But we're going to get away from the Cardinals here. Do the Cardinals go receiver? Hopkins is probably on his way out. I'm trying to think of who their other receivers are. They lost Christian Kirk last year. Rondale Moore, and Marquise Brown. Probably not. That wouldn't make much sense. The line is interesting. Paris Johnson projects to be a guard. I guess DJ Humphries is a good left tackle. Which, that's a high pick for a guard. But, I don't know. Might be defense. Could it be Brian Branch? Buda Baker is another guy that might get traded. I could see this being Brian Branch potentially. Grant says D-line. D-line would make sense too. I'm looking at the D-line right now. Jonathan Ledbetter, Lecky Fotu, Rashard Lawrence, Myjai Sanders. Well, I guess the interior, they run a 3-4. Yeah, I could see D-line or edge for sure. Their front seven is looking rough. Which means Keon White, potentially. It could mean Tuli Tupatulutu. I butchered that. I'm sorry. BJ Ojulari, who a lot of people like. We're about to find out. Another Hall of Famer coming out here. Enos Williams. Keanu Benton, who is a popular name in the Doc Mock. BJ Ojulari. There you go. So it was essentially D-line, more or less. Front seven, position of need. Good call, Grant. BJ Ojulari to the Cardinals. They get an edge rusher. They desperately needed one. It's a team that's deprived of talent. And Ojulari, someone who flashed a lot playing in the SEC, and that's never a bad thing. You know, at this point, there's not going to be any home runs in the draft. Well, I don't know, man. Maybe I'm just like obsessed, but like Brian Branch, I don't care if he's a safety / nickel. There's a value for that in the NFL today. But, there's no like slam dunk picks at this point in the draft. If you can get a starter, you're happy. Packers pick is in. One of two Packers picks. I don't know, Caden. What do you think here? What are you feeling for the Packers? You think it pass catcher? I might have had it. No, I didn't. Okay, good. I was about to get really upset with NFL.com. I did not have the pick spoiled for me. I'm just so used to seeing one name at the top of the list when I refresh, and he wasn't there. And I thought the Packers picked Jalen Hyatt, which might be the pick, actually. I don't love Jalen Hyatt, at least in certain situations. I think he's more of a one-trick pony. But let's see. Luke Musgrave. All right, so it is a pass catcher. All right, so it's a compromise. You get Luke Musgrave, who is a very toolsy tight end. It is kind of a boomer bust pick. He didn't have the greatest production in college. His tape was a little inconsistent, but he flashed a lot. He's big, 6'5", very athletic. Issues with drops, but he can make some tough catches. All indications point to him having strong hands and having capability to make tough catches. And it is explosiveness and physicality and a mismatch in the passing game that the Packers are just lacking outside of Christian Watson. Christian Watson, I love. Horns up, baby. He had a great rookie year. Packers get another pass catcher. I mean, they're showing right now, lack of production, 22 catches and 304 yards were career highs for him. But obviously the college game is very different from the pros with the way that they feed their players targets. So if you're the Packers and you're confident in your coaching staff, being able to coach them up a little bit, I don't hate it. I would have probably taken Darnell over Musgrave if I was going to take a risk on a tight end. But I do think Musgrave has a bit higher upside overall as a receiver. Darnell, as athletic and freaky as he is, I don't see him quite stretching the field like Musgrave could. But Darnell is just a specimen. However, I would give that pick a solid, I'm going to give it a solid B. They need pass catchers. They finally got one. So there you go, Caden. You didn't get a wide receiver, but you do get a tight end. You get one that, if he turns out, he's going to be pretty good. I'm curious. I don't know. Green Bay seems to develop their players pretty well. So that's a solid pick. Jordan Love gets a toy. Caden says probably QB, somewhat facetiously, I'm sure. But your new QB does get a new weapon. So, I don't know. How you feel about Luke Musgrave, a new tight end for the Packers? Robert Tonyan isn't exactly what he was during the COVID year. But you get a new guy. You get a new guy to catch. He says, I guess I'll take it. And you know what? You get one more pick. Maybe you'll go wide receiver with your next pick. Maybe the Packers were confident that the Jets or Colts won't take a receiver here, and they'll go tight end receiver. We'll see. Jets pick is in. Although the Jets could go receiver. They have Garrett Wilson. They got Lazard. They have Corey Davis. Rodgers might want another guy, though. We'll see. Or it could be tackle. Offensive line. I don't know who's really on the board for that, but all right. Joe Tittman, first center gone, the Wisconsin guy. And a good rule of thumb when it comes to drafting players, if you're drafting an O-lineman, draft the guy from Wisconsin. Tittman, typical Wisconsin lineman, That's really all there is to say to it. I don't know too much about him, but it was him or John Michael Schmitz for the top center. Maybe I'm a little biased. I like John Michael Schmitz a little bit more. But the Jets did need a center. I mean, they do need offensive line help. It's probably one of the weaker spots on their team. Pressure up the middle is not good, especially for an aging quarterback, so I don't blame them for shoring it up. So we'll see. Joe Tippmann from Wisconsin off to the Jets. And they're comparing him right now to other Wisconsin offensive linemen. If you're watching NFL Network right now, you know exactly what I mean. I mean, Joe Thomas, Kevin Zeitler had a good career. Gabe Karimi was, okay, maybe not the greatest example. And then the bottom guy, Al Johnson or something. I don't know who he is. He was in 2003, but he's pretty big, 6'6", 313. But that's the pick for the Jets. Colts are back on the clock, and then the Packers again. The Colts. I don't know if any of you guys saw this, but I'm going to show you something. Jim Irsay tweeted this out today, and it was hilarious and stupid. And I think he was trolling, but he tweeted out before the Colts traded down in the second round, Colts fans, would you take Will Levis at 2 if you're on the board for the Colts 4 hours from now? Football emoji, football emoji, football emoji. And go Montana Young for franchise. First of all, the syntax and formatting on this tweet is interesting. And go Montana Young for franchise. And the fact that franchise is capitalized. Jim, you good, bro? Like, and second of all, like, there's just no way he can actually be serious, right? Like, there's just, like, if you really wanted to play devil's advocate and use Montana Young as the example, the problem with that is that the Niners didn't draft Joe Montana and Steve Young the same year. They drafted Steve Young, like, in the middle of Joe Montana's career. A more comparable situation would have been Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers, if Jordan Love took over and became a Hall of Famer. Which, knock on wood, fellow NFC North fans, let's hope that's not the case, because I don't think I can handle another decade plus of Hall of Fame quarterback play from the Packers. But anyways, like, he has to be joking, right? If you're Anthony Richardson, like, how do you feel seeing this? Having your owner say, hey, what if we go Will Levis and go Montana Young for franchise? Like, Jim, bro, what are you doing? He's got to be trolling. When someone asked him what they were going to do in the draft leading up to the draft, he said, well, we could trade up, we could trade down, or we could stay and make the pick. So I think he's trolling, but I don't know. Day 2 begins 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. We'll pick early round 2, or will we? Dude, shut up. He's definitely just messing with us. The funny part is they actually did trade down. But speaking of trolling, while I'm on Twitter, shout out to Grant for putting me on this earlier today. This actually popped up right there. But Antonio Brown posted something interesting on Twitter, and he's got to be trolling. Excited to return to the NFL this year. Hashtag Ravens flock, with a poorly photoshopped picture of him flexing with a Ravens jersey. And Grant texted in our group chat, AB to the Ravens, ? And I was in my sports media class when I saw it. It popped up on my computer, and we were talking about football. We were talking about the draft, and I thought I had a big scoop on breaking news for a sec. So I, like, quickly scramble on Twitter to try and find a source, because I'm about to be like, hey, y'all, we have some breaking news. AB is back in the league, but he's obviously trolling. There's no way. You know, AB might have agreed to terms with the Ravens, but the Ravens have not agreed to terms with AB. As Julius Brents goes to the Colts. Big 6'2" corner out of K-State. Chris Kleiman, horns up, represent, baby. Brents is another one of those corners who was an interesting guy to watch out for on day 2. The Colts lost Stephon Gilmore. Well, they traded him. They chose to lose him. So corner was definitely a spot that they needed to fill. There's some interesting names left for corner. There's still Cam Smith, Clark Phillips, Keely Ringo, Tyreek Stevenson, Tomlinson Hodges. This is a fairly good corner class. It's pretty deep. As we have a trade. Caden, man, your Packers have traded with the Lions. All right, so what do we have here with the Lions? Lions trade up with Green Bay. Who do we think that the Lions want here? So far the Lions have drafted Jahmyr Gibbs at 12, which was a shocker. He's a great player. Jack Campbell at 18, I think it was? Another shocker. A good player, but that was an even bigger reach than Gibbs, in my opinion. And then they take Sam Laporta in early rounds, too. Maybe another reach? I mean, truly, I truly think the Lions just have their own board, and they're going with their own board. And honestly, I can't hate them for it, because if you like the guy, you go and get them. And they're employed for a reason, and I'm not. So, like, they have done a good job drafting and building this team, so I can't really clown on them too much. But I genuinely don't know what they're doing here. Like, I'll say this. The Lions were devastated that Devon Witherspoon went to the Seahawks yesterday. Apparently that's who they really wanted. And so that shook up their whole plan. They also apparently had Jahmyr Gibbs over Bijan Robinson on their board, which is curious. And this is not disrespect to Jahmyr Gibbs one bit. I think he's going to be a fantastic football player. Great running back, explosive, good pass catcher. One comp for him yesterday was Jamal Charles. I like it. Similar build, speed, explosiveness. The problem I have is a couple of things. First of all, now I get whatever. Bijan, they had Gibbs over Bijan, whatever. But, like, I mean, just, I feel like for most people, you look at Bijan being on the board at 6 and they wanted a running back. Why not just take him? And second of all, this is a team that gave David Montgomery a 3-year contract. 3 years is a decent amount of time for a second contract for a running back. If it had been 2 or 1 year, sure. But 3 years, that's a decent investment. And now you go draft a running back at 12? Now, I love running the ball. I literally have a video preaching valuing running backs. I do. And so I can't hate on this pick too much. But just based on everything else they've done, it doesn't really make sense. And then you add in the fact that they take an off-ball linebacker at 18 when they probably could have gotten him later. I can't get too mad because they're taking good players. They are. And for all I know, Jahmyr Gibbs could go for 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns and be a great, great player for them right out of the gate. But running back wasn't really a need for them, and linebacker wasn't a need for them either. Malcolm Rodriguez was great for the Lions, so I don't know. Grant says the logical pick is Branch, but with the Lions, who knows? And to that, I say, I don't know how much they need Brian Branch. I might have said this yesterday, but they already have C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who more or less would play a similar role on that defense to Branch. Now, if they want to double up and say, we're going to have safeties that'll light the world on fire, by all means, go ahead. In some ways, that'd be cool, because I think we need to bring back the idea of safety duos. Safeties are a position that have really been devalued. But you're right with the Lions, who knows? I mean, it could be Keeley for all we know. It could be Clark Phillips. You know, they could go corner here. Could they go wide receiver with Jameson Williams being suspended? The terms have come out of the trade, so Green Bay moves down 3 spots. They also get a 5th-round pick. All right, not bad. You could always use more picks. Sometimes the draft is just a crapshoot. You got to keep taking your swings. That Cardinals trade is looking more and more good. The Cardinals got a future 3rd for moving down, 8 spots? You know you're a football nerd and you're in deep when you're saying, yo, the Cardinals, man, getting a future 3rd for moving down 8 spots. Holy W, but good move. Clearly, whoever Green Bay wants, they think is going to be there at 48. So we'll stick around for the Packers pick, Caden. We'll stick around for you. Don't worry, man. I got you. Lions, Patriots, Commanders, and Packers are the next 4 up. And I truly don't know who this is going to be. It's going to be a shocker. Gabe just said something in the group chat where I'm not reading it till I see what this pick is. We also have 3 people here in the stream now. Welcome, new person. Welcome to the stream. How you doing? Roger up on the podium. Brian Branch. All right, Grant. All right, Grant. You know what? You got me there. I'm boomed in my own stream. Well done, Grant. Brian Branch to the Lions, and it looks like they are just going to double up. And you know what? Good on them. They needed to build up their secondary. They get, in my opinion, the best player left on the board. They just needed to improve their defense as a whole. Not bad. Let's see what Gabe has to say about that pick. I'm assuming that's what he says. Smiley face. All right. So for those that don't know, Gabe, one of our friends from Georgia, working for the Detroit Lions. And that pick gets a smiley face from the Lions facility out in Allen Park. Grant says, LOL. Man, you know ball. I gotta hand it to Grant. Like, I may be Dr. Pigskin, but Grant knows ball when it comes to college football. Grant and James really shine when it comes to the draft. They're kind of like the Mel Kiper and Todd McShay of Georgia, if you will. They know their stuff when it comes to the draft. Man, like they're especially James, man. James is a tape dog. James will have like sleepers from like rounds 5 and 6, and like I'm gonna be real, I don't know who these people are, but I usually trust his word. I said this on the stream last week with the Doc Mock, but he called Tariq Woolen. He had Tariq Woolen as one of his top corners in the draft, and he was a beast, round 5. But Brian Branch, who I'm seeing as a 58 for athleticism, so maybe that's why he fell. I'll be honest, I wasn't aware of Brian Branch being a poor athlete. But let's take a look. Not good. It's not good. A 5'9". He's pretty small, only 190 pounds. His broad jump is the only thing that really stands out. 40-yard dash, whatever. But for the role he would play in a defense, I don't know how much that's really going to affect him. You don't need to be a freak athlete. It's a lot more about smarts, football IQ, and instincts. And just what I've seen from Brian Branch, he has all of that in bunches. I think he's a really smart player. Alabama players are usually pro-ready. So for a team like the Lions, who are trying to win now, who really believe that they can take this division, I like the Brian Branch pick if they feel like they can find a spot for him in this defense. Also, we have word from James calling Julius Brents the next Woolen. So there you go. Julius Brents went a few picks ago. He went to the Colts, actually. So Julius Brents might be a name to watch out for a breakout. And he's also calling Dayan Henley maybe. Well, I'll be honest, I don't know who that is. Let's take a look at Dayan Henley out of Nevada. He's a football player, according to Google. A linebacker, okay. It looks like he has pretty good scores across the board. What's his player comp here? Let's see. He's got a 2nd to 3rd round grade. And Lance doesn't give us a player comp. How dare you? How am I supposed to know? Majored in social science. Good for him. Went to Crenshaw. Yo, Caden, if you're still in here, man, you remember the show All American? Crenshaw? No, not that Crenshaw. Spencer James. Yo, Spencer James would be my first overall pick in the draft. If any of you guys have watched All American, I haven't watched the newer seasons, but that was a COVID show, man. I watched that show during COVID, first 2 seasons. It's a little soapy. I mean, it's on the CW. But there's enough football in it that it like peels you in, and I don't know, like You kind of get invested. It's a decent watch. I don't know if it's still on Netflix or not, but All American. Sebastian Vollmer's making the pick for the Patriots. Now that's a name. I believe he's out of Hungary, actually. He's one of the few foreign-born NFL players. I'm going to look that up in a sec. But Vollmer's making the pick for the Patriots. I know he's out of Europe somewhere. Patriots get Keon White. Good pick. They could use some more juice in the pass rush. They get Keon White, who had a borderline first-round grade on him. He doesn't look very happy right now on TV. He looks sad. He's twitchy with an exclamation mark, according to NFL Network. And also, apparently used to play tight end at Old Dominion. So Keon White to the Patriots. Good pick. I like that pick. I like the Patriots. I like that pick. James says Dion Henley is a mini Fred Warner. I gotta say, you gotta be pretty small to be a mini version of an already mini guy. But Fred Warner, which linebackers like him are in high demand. So I'm assuming that means good coverage skills, good instincts, better than expected against the run, smart, overall, well-rounded football player. So another guy to watch out for. Thanks, James, for the nice contribution. Our resident draft expert. And now the Commanders pick is in. Did the Packers trade down again? Did they trade with Tampa Bay? Hold on a sec. Or am I tripping? Yeah, they traded with Tampa Bay. So Green Bay moves down again. Fred Warner Light. Okay. Fred Warner Light. That makes more sense. English is funny, man, sometimes, the way that words work. The Commanders pick is in, and then after that, it's going to be the Bucks on the clock. London Fletcher, another guy. We're going to look up where Sebastian Vollmer's from before I forget. Sebastian Vollmer. I swear he's from Hungary. He's from Germany. Okay. So maybe he's Hungarian or from Germany. Maybe he's just straight up German. He is German. I don't know where I got Hungary from. But yeah, one of the rare, European football players. He did play college ball at Houston, but he went to high school in Germany. That's sick. I hope that one day we can have a future where there are more foreign-born players in the NFL as the Commanders take Jartavius Martin out of Illinois. So now 2 Illinois cornerbacks gone here in the first 2 rounds. Of course, Devon Witherspoon going earlier. The Commanders shoring up their pass defense with another corner. Commanders' defense is good, but they have struggled against the pass recently, so I can definitely understand them going corner here. I think the most interesting thing about this Commanders team, this man right here, they did not pick up his 5th-year option. And part of me can understand why. Now, he's been injured, so you can't blame it all on him. But you might have seen there, he's had 1.5 sacks in the past 2 seasons. Granted, he's only played 12 games. But even his rookie year, 7.5 sacks. And, the tape on him his rookie year is a little kinder to him than that number. But dare I say, he has been pretty underwhelming. Now, I'm not ready to write him off yet. He was insanely talented coming out of college. Very high regarded. Maybe he just needs a season of health. But they didn't pick up his option, and that's a little curious. Because usually picking up the option is a gimme. Because it's just an extra year to see what you have. So, I don't know. But they still got Montez Sweat, who I like a lot. Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen. I mean, good Lord. If Chase Young can rediscover his form, you'd be hard-pressed to find a better D-line than that. Especially those 2 D tackles, man. They've got some interesting players in their secondary. I like their safeties. Cameron Curl, Derek Forrest are good. We have another pick now, as we're going to go to the Bucks. Could the Bucks go Torrance here? They could use interior line. Let's go. Cody Mock to the Bucks. They go O-line. They go with the kid from North Dakota State. Oh, let's go. Horns up, baby. Horns up. You absolutely love to see it. He's out in Hankinson, North Dakota right now. Hankinson, North Dakota is on NFL Network. I'm pretty sure he was from Breckenridge. Oh, that is awesome. From Breckenridge, Minnesota, literally right next to Wahpeton. I literally know people from Breckenridge. If you pull it up on the maps here, we'll get to Cody Mock more in a sec, but I literally know people from this area. I've been here before, and so I don't know. It is just so cool to see someone from this tiny little speck on this giant rock we call Earth. From someone right here to make it all the way to the NFL. So, I don't know, man. I'm beaming right now. I know I've had a love-hate relationship with NDSU, but these past few years I've been back on the train. But regardless of what you think of the Bison, yes, Bison, you love to see it. I mean, just look at him. He is a legend. I keep spelling his name wrong, but he's got the big long hair, the missing teeth. And I'll tell you what, man, the Bison get their guys ready to play. If you come to NDSU and you put in some good years, people will notice you. I mean, you started off as a tight end, right? Like, look at this. I'm sure a lot of you have seen this before, but look at the transformation from boy to Viking, really. Like, that is awesome. Favorite pick. I'm so glad I stayed in here so I could see that live. The Buccaneers desperately needed help on their offensive line. They've got a very top-heavy line, but they've got some really bad weak spots. They shore it up. He can play guard. He can play tackle. No, he's not the most talented player in the draft. No, his upside isn't the highest, but I tell you what, he's going to stick around in the league for a few years, and sometimes in the second round, that's all you can ask for. What a pick for the Bucks. I'm on cloud 9 right now. Let's go, Bison. Shout out North Dakota. Shout out Breckenridge, Minnesota. I mean, Ryan Jensen's great, right? Tristan Wirfs, in my opinion, is on a Hall of Fame path. But other than that, not good at these three spots right here. And that sunk them last year. Their offense was bad last year because of how bad parts of their line were. But Tristan Wirfs, I say that so I've said this before. I said it a lot last night when we were just hanging out, but on average, most drafts have 3 or 4 Hall of Fame players, right? For the 2020 draft, he will be one of them. He is one of the best players in football, in my opinion. He is incredible. Already a Super Bowl champ. All pros, Pro Bowls, dominant. But you need more than just one guy. You need more than just 2 guys. And the Buccaneers, they got themselves a guy. What a moment in the history of Dr. Pigskin live streaming when the kid from the Midwest, the kid from Fargo, North Dakota, gets to react to the drafting of the kid from Breckenridge, Minnesota. How can we top that? Well, let's see, Pittsburgh. Let's see. And then after that, the Packers. Packers are on the clock. Pittsburgh's pick is in. They've done a great job drafting so far. What do they got cooking up here? They went Joey Porter to start off, right? Started us off with a bang. What are they cooking? They have a new GM, too, I'm pretty sure. Steelers GM. His name is like Omar something. Omar Khan. I like what he's done so far. I like him. Keep an eye out on him. He's been making some moves. He was hired last year, it looks like. I don't know. Let Omar cook. Let Kwesi cook, of course. I'm ruling out the Vikings trading up. I mean, we're at 87. It would be a lot to move up from 87, and I don't know who he'd want. Faneka's back to announce the pick. Looks like he's got a kid with him. Keanu Benton. Perhaps a Cam Hayward replacement, dare I say. Father Time catches up with everyone. Cam Hayward's pretty old. He's been around a while. He was drafted in 2010, I think. 09 or 010. I guess we'll find out on here. 2011 was it? Interesting. But they've also got Montravius Adams, Larry Ogunjobi. I mean, we looked at their depth chart before, but at worst, a depth pick. At most, a potential replacement for a guy. Like I've said before, we want to talk about a Hall of Famer. I don't know if he'll actually get in the Hall of Fame, but I think he's been good enough and had a good enough career where he should be a Hall of Famer. Cam Hayward, man. Like, his stats haven't always been eye-popping because of the role he plays, but I tell you what, it's not a coincidence that every single year Pittsburgh has someone near the top for sacks. And yeah, they just do a really good job of drafting and developing edge rushers. But like TJ Watt got hurt last year, Alex Highsmith, who's a fine player, comes in and lights the world on fire. I mean, he even had a 12-sack year. He's had back-to-back seasons with double-digit sacks. If anything, he's aging well. But here's the Packers pick, Caden. Get ready. Leroy Butler, another Hall of Famer. Pick number 50 for the Packers. Okay, calling them the best franchise. Just get on with it, dude. There's a receiver, and it's Jaden Reed. Wow. He was not on my radar. Jaden Reed out of Michigan State, 5'10", 4.45 40. Let's take a look at Jaden Reed for you, Caden. So you do get your receiver. They double up on pass catchers. Looks like they weren't going to hold off for that long. Jaden Reed. NFL comparison is Greg Ward. Projected rounds 4 and 5. Definitely not something that was on a lot of people's radars. Let's take a look at his production in college. I'll be honest, I don't know much about Jaden Reed. But if you trust your GM, man, sometimes that's all you can do. You just got to trust that your GM is making the right picks. Looks like he played at Western Michigan for a year. He had a 1,000-yard season in there. Missed maybe a few games from injury. I mean, Michigan State as a whole was just rough last year. They had a down year. I don't know much about college football, but I do know that. And I do know they paid their coach a lot. We'll stick around for the Dolphins pick. This is Miami's first pick of the draft. They've waited a while for this moment. I feel like they're a contender, honestly, depending on how Tua plays. I feel like this has got to be a win-now pick with how the team has been set up. We're cruising through this draft. Cam Smith, a corner. So they already went out and got a corner in Jalen Ramsey, which I think was a great trade. Don't believe the Jalen Ramsey washed allegations for a bit. He's still very, very good. He's maybe not the best corner in the league anymore, but he's at worst top 10. He's an asset for sure, and I think he'll age really well, and he can move into safety as he gets older. People are like, oh, he's old. Well, he's actually only 28, and I think he can be a good safety into his 30s. They also have Xavier Howard. There have been trade rumors about him for a while. They haven't pulled the trigger on it yet. Also, Kader Kahu, I think that's how you say his name. One of the better nickels in the league. So it's interesting that they went corner. I feel like it wasn't really a big need for them unless they planned to deal Howard, which I won't see why they would, considering that they're trying to win. Maybe they'll put him at safety. I love Javon Holland a lot. I love his upside. I think he's going to be a really good safety, maybe even as soon as this year. I don't know much about Brandon Jones. Could they move him to safety? I don't know. We'll get to the Seahawks pick, and then I think we're going to jump into some quizzes because I've been itching to do some Sporkle quizzes, and we'll keep following the draft, and if there's anything you guys ever want to talk about, you can just feel free to drop it in the chat, but we'll see what the Seahawks have here. Bears are up next, but we're going to do some draft quizzes. Go back to some old drafts, just see if we can name some of those picks. Is that KJ Wright? It is. It's got to be. Seahawks legend. A running back for the Seahawks, Zach Charbonnet. Wow. Okay. So a lot of people had him as RB3 or 4 in this class. It's a pretty good running back class. So they go running back, I believe, in the second round last year. And now they go this year, too. And I think I can see the vision. Now, it's so funny, right? Because I was just coming at the Lions for signing a running back and then drafting one. But I think their ultimate goal with Kenny Walker is for him not to be a full-on workhorse. Because they had Rashad Penny last year, and they were hoping Penny would stay healthy and that those two would just be an insane duo for them. When Penny was healthy, they were. Penny's a really good back. I think he'll be good in Philly. But Penny's gone now. I think DJ Dallas is their other back. So they're trying. It looks like Seattle is just intent on having two backs, running two backs. Now, second round still might be a little rich for that. But what do I know, man? I'm just a 22-year-old kid. But we're going to jump into some Sporkle quizzes now. We're going to try and stick with the draft theme here. NFL draft. Let's start with 2010. Let's see if we can find a quiz for like the 2010 first round. Or anything else that catches my eye. Number 1 draft picks. Nah. NFL top 10. NFL draft first rounds 2010. Here we go. I've not taken this one before. I'm assuming it's right. Usually people that make these quizzes are pretty good, but I'm very excited for this. All right, so here we go. NFL draft first round back in 2010. Sam Bradford, the first pick. Very talented, but made of glass. Great player. Ndamukong Suh. I'm not going to be able to spell his name. I'm going to need to look this up. I will need to do this multiple times, but I do know it's Sue. I mean, I could just type in Sue. I mean, there's no other person named Sue. Tampa Bay Bucks at 3 is going to be Gerald McCoy. So it's a good D-tackle class. Gerald McCoy had a great career. Not quite a Hall of Famer, but very good. Trent Williams at 4. Some good players early on. Eric Berry at 5 for the Chiefs. What an incredible story. Comeback player of the year, deservedly so. Great safety. Russell Okung at 6. He converted his salary into Bitcoin back when he played. That's a true story. You can look that up. He also didn't have an agent. He was one of the first players to do that. Browns at 7. Joe Hayden. Another great player. Also played for the Steelers. Had a great career out of Florida. Oakland Raiders at 9. Now I'm going to give you guys a sec. Maybe you don't type it in the chat, but take a guess who this is. I know who this is. Just think for a few seconds. Linebacker out of Alabama. Oakland Raiders. I know who it is. Now, if you said it was Rolando McClain, you would be correct. Man, Oakland, man. What are you doing? Just have not had a good track record in the first round as we get C.J. Spiller for the Bills. Jaguars, D-tackle Cal. He had his best years in Pittsburgh. It was considered a reach at the time. It's none other than Tyson Alualu. Niners, Rutgers offensive tackle. That's going to be the other Anthony Davis. He was a great player. Fresno State running back Ryan Matthews for the Chargers. He was supposed to be LaDainian Tomlinson's successor. He had a few years. Grant said he knew. Good call, Grant. Of course you knew your SEC guy. But Ryan Matthews, DE Michigan, Brandon Graham, still in the league. One of the few guys from this class that's not only still in the league, but still popping. Then we get, in my opinion, should be a Hall of Famer, might not be because he kind of went crazy, Earl Thomas. In my opinion, the best member of the Legion of Boom. Giants, we get Jason Pierre-Paul. Big boomer bust prospect, definitely boomed. Speaking of boom, his fingers. Titans, is that going to be Derek Morgan? Georgia Tech defensive end? It is. I'm going to be honest, I don't know how I knew that. Mike Upati for the Niners, guard out of Idaho, another great player. They did a good job drafting their line in this class. Mike Pouncey, or is it Marquise? I think it's Marquise, actually. I'm just going to put Pouncey. I know it's Mike or Marquise. Marquise Pouncey, great career. So was Mike. The Pouncey brothers were both great. They might have been a little crazy, though. That whole Florida team was crazy. This is where I run into trouble. It's ironic, actually. The Falcons, outside linebacker, Missouri. I'm going to think about this one for a little bit. I actually don't know off the top of my head. This is the first one I don't know. We'll get Kareem Jackson for the Texans. Too many E's. Still. Also had a good career as a safety for the Broncos. I think he was a part of the no-fly zone defense that won the Super Bowl. Bengals, Oklahoma tight end, Jermaine Gresham. Yep. Broncos, Demaryius Thomas, rest in peace. Man, that was so sad. I remember watching the Thursday night football game between the Vikings and Steelers when he passed away. I was watching with Michael, who's a Steelers fan. He said Demaryius Thomas died. Sad story. Great player. Do I have a knock on my door? Or did something fall? Dude, that scared the heck out of me. Grant is smiling right now. Hold on a sec. Yo, that's scary. There's like, I swear, I heard something knock on my door. Hello? Hello? All right, I'm clearly losing it a little bit. There's no one there. My door was locked. But I went out to my living area and dining area with a kitchen knife in my hand because I swear it sounded like someone was knocking on my door. I don't know if my neighbors upstairs are pissed. I'm not even that loud. Anyways, I missed a pick. The Bears made a pick. I'll see it on the bottom crawl. Well, while we're paused, we'll just see what's happened. So Gervon Dexter, I don't know how to say his name. He goes to the Bears. They get a D tackle. Checks out. They don't have Eddie Goldman or Akeem Hicks anymore. Chargers pick is in. They're about to announce it. I don't know the Falcons pick. You're right, Grant. I don't know your pick. Packers offensive tackle out of Iowa is going to be Brian Bulaga. Cowboys, Oklahoma State, Des Bryant. What a pick. He was so good. Fell because of character concerns, but he was incredible. Denver Broncos, QB Florida, Tim Tebow. Oh, yeah. Tebow mania was a time, man. We got to hurry up. Time's running out. Cardinals D tackle out of Tennessee. I don't know. We'll get Devin McCourty for the Patriots out of Rutgers. Miami Dolphins. So initially, I would think it's Cam Wake, but it's not. Cam Wake was undrafted, but he was a Dolphins DE out of Penn State. Jets corner out of Boise. This is getting a little tough at the end. We'll get Javid Best for the Lions. A big what if. Such a good back. Concussions ruined his career. Jerry Hughes for the Colts, who's still starting in the league. He's not popping in the league like Brandon Graham, but he's starting for the Texans. And the New Orleans Saints cornerback out of Florida State. I don't know. James says, I'm in your house. Let's hope. Well, I was armed with a knife, James, so do with that what you will. All right, Grant. Give me a hint for the Falcons. How about that? Don't give me the answer. If any of you guys in the chat know any of these guys left, I've got about 2 minutes. Give me a hint. Let's see if I can get a few of these. James, I'll keep my eyes peeled for you in my house. Chargers go with Tuli Tuaputulo. I'm so sorry, dude. I just keep messing up your name. But he stays in Southern California. I vaguely know who the Cardinals D-tackle is, but I don't. It's some guy. I mean, obviously. Dolphins DE Penn State, no idea. Boise State corner, no idea. Florida State corner, Saints, no idea. I'm this close to hitting give up. This is driving me crazy. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I'll gladly take 27 out of 32. I feel like that's pretty good, but of course it's the Falcons to mess things up. Of course. Also, worth noting, no Vikings pick in this draft. I believe, true to brand, we traded back, and our first pick in this draft was Chris Cook, a corner out of Virginia, who was terrible, and also a terrible person. So, yeah. He also played for Arizona and then came back to ATL. Oh, jeez. Okay. So the Falcons, I'm pretty sure, were 4-3 during this draft. So when it's outside linebacker. And he also played for Arizona and then he came back to Atlanta. Oh, jeez. And he was a first-round pick out of Missouri. Chiefs pick is in. I've got 15 seconds. I don't think I'm going to get any of these. We'll go to 2011 after this because this is kind of fun. But as the weekend said, I am out of time. Sean Weatherspoon. Okay. James offers $1 if I get Miami right. Jared Odrick. Okay, that's a name I remember. Wow, Kyle Wilson. I don't think there's any universe where I get Kyle Wilson right. Patrick Robinson, I remember the name, but I did not think of him as a first rounder. Dan Williams. I knew it was some stupid name like that. I got an above average score. I got a B. I'll take it. Sean Weatherspoon. I had no idea he played for the Cardinals. Wow. I also had no idea he was drafted at that point of time. I always thought that he was drafted earlier. He had a decent career. All right. Sean Weatherspoon. Oh, Grant, Grant, you were sneaky with the hint because he only played 1 year in Arizona. Here I thought he was like this big contributor for the Cardinals, and then he had one final year with Atlanta. But that's a fair hint. I'm not hating. I should have just known ball better. Let's try 2011. 2010 was a hard one. That was a long time ago. That was 13 years ago, if you can believe it. Chiefs pick is in still. I think it might be Jalen Hyatt. I kind of hope it is, to be honest. I know he can't beat press coverage, but he's fast. Let Patty sling it, as we're going to get. This draft class was incredible. We're going to get Cam Newton, one of my favorite players all time, number 1. Would have been he was so good. Would have been even better if he didn't get injured, if he was actually protected by the referees. Von Miller at 2, a Hall of Famer. Marcel Darius at 3, a very good player. A.J. Green at 4, a borderline Hall of Famer. Patrick Peterson at 5, a borderline Hall of Famer. Julio Jones at 6, a first ballot Hall of Famer. Aldon Smith at 7, might have been a Hall of Famer if he wasn't a wacko. He had a 20-sack season. He was a monster. And then we have the Titans taking Jake Locker at 8, who some might compare to Will Levis, except Jake Locker went 8. So, interesting. I don't know. Will Levis and Jake Locker. Do with that what you will. Tyron Smith, probably a Hall of Famer. This is a class that probably has an above average amount of Hall of Famers. Everyone has been crazy so far, except for 2 of the 3 QBs, because we get Blaine Gabbert. Super Bowl champion Blaine Gabbert, but was not good with the Jaguars. Then we get a shoe-in Hall of Famer, J.J. Watt, and then the Minnesota Vikings in one of the most stacked draft classes of all time pick a quarterback just to pick a quarterback. It was a reach at the time, and it looks even worse now. Christian Ponder. He was so bad. You want to know why Adrian Peterson won MVP? Because a team with Christian Ponder made the playoffs. Nick Fairley, who's beloved in Georgia at the next pick. I say that facetiously. He's hated here for his cheap shots. Robert Quinn, who's had a very underrated career. Very weird career, just like a few random seasons where he's exploded. We get the other Pouncey, Mike Pouncey, to the Dolphins, who might have been even better than Marquise. Ryan Kerrigan, DE Purdue for Washington, who was called something else at the time. How about that for a first half of a first round? Insane talent. Nate Solder for the Patriots. Chargers. This one takes me back. Do any of y'all watching right now know who this Chargers pick is? I do. I feel like y'all probably do. Rashee Rice. So it was a wide receiver for the Chiefs. They go Rashee Rice. Oh, what's up, Christine? Welcome to the stream. We're doing Sporkle quizzes of NFL draft first rounds right now. We're talking about the draft. Christine, what is your thoughts on Rashee Rice to the Chiefs? Let me know. But we're going to Corey Liuget, if I can spell his name right, for the Chargers, who, to be honest with you, I don't think he really did a whole lot. Corey Liuget. Here's another throwback. Giants, who played a key role in their Super Bowl win. Prince Amukamara. He was a baller for a few years. I loved him. He was so fun. Buccaneers DE Iowa, Adrian Claiborne. Christine says, I don't like the Chiefs, therefore I don't like him. And I would say that a lot of NFL fans have a similar take to you. Just ask James. James also does not like the Chiefs. I'm going to let you on a little secret. I do like the Chiefs, though. Phil Taylor, one of the Browns' annual busts back during this time. Anthony Costanzo. Good player. Here's an underrated bust. The fireman, Danny Watkins, for the Eagles. He was like a 26-year-old firefighter, and they drafted him in the first round, and he was not good. Christine says, I know ball. And to that I say, yes, you do. You should hop on one of these streams with me one day, and we'll talk ball. We can talk about Mr. Allison Cooch, as you like to always say. The one, the only, Isaac Rochelle. Saints defensive end, Cameron Jordan, great pick. Seahawks tackle out of Bama as Tyreek Stevenson goes to the Bears. I hate how good of a pick that was. Oh, man. Who's the Seahawks? James Carpenter. Chiefs wide receiver, is that Jonathan Baldwin? Not a good pick. Ravens, Jimmy Smith out of Colorado. Christine says yes. All right, we'll make it happen. Next stream we'll get you on here, and we can talk about your favorite TikTok NFL players. NFL players that are husbands or boyfriends of TikTokers. I believe it's Isaac Rochelle and Jawan Jennings. We can have some good conversations about them. Saints running back out of Bama, Mark Ingram, easy. Heisman winner. Bears, call back to the early in the stream, Gabe Karimi, who's not that great. Jets, Temple D tackle. Is it Muhammad Wilkerson? It's got to be. He was a great player for a while. I'm pretty sure it's Muhammad Wilkerson. I just spelled his name wrong. Speaking of the Jets, they're on the clock. But Muhammad Wilkerson was a beast. Steelers, Cameron Hayward. And to round it out, the Packers out of Mississippi State, a tackle. I don't know. Is the Giants on the clock? And the Giants take John Michael Schmitz, a pick that I like. I mean, I've been very high on him throughout the process. A very clean, polished center. And sometimes that's just what you need at the center position. Clean, consummate pro. It's a hard responsibility being a center in the NFL. You got to know everything. You got to know the blocking assignments. You got to be the anchor, the leader of the line, the communicator between the quarterback. And you got to block guys. John Michael Schmitz is good at all those things. He's not a freak, but he's a good, smart player. Good pick for the Giants, who I believe are James's second team at this point. You can see the brain trust right now. Joe Schoen, Brian Daboll shaking hands. They're the Bills light, if you will. I don't know who this Packers player is. I'm going to give up unless any of y'all know who it is. You've got 40 seconds. If you've got a hint about the Packers player, drop it in here. Otherwise, we're taking the L, and we're taking the 31 out of 32. We were so close. Cowboys pick is in now. They missed out on... This has got to be Darnell. If they pick Darnell, I'm going to stop and talk about Darnell for a little bit. Right? They need a tight end. They don't have a tight end right now. Drew Pearson announcing the pick. He pushed off. They say they don't know. 3 seconds left. I'm not even going to look at it. I want to see this Cowboys pick first, and then we'll talk about it. We're just going to scroll down so I don't even have the temptation. All right, Drew Pearson, you got your moment. You're drawing this out. He's literally shaking. What? Luke Schoonmaker? James or Grant, do you know anything about him? Because I do not. And I was right about a tight end, but Luke Schoonmaker? Who? "24 years old." I mean, Michigan is another one of those schools that, like, they produce some guys. One guy I really like for no particular reason, I don't know if he's draft eligible or not, I think he's next year, is Eric All. I've watched, like, a few Michigan games in my life. I don't know what it is, man. I love Eric All. A little off topic. I don't think that's how you spell his name, yeah. I think is Eric All at Iowa now? I like that for him. But anyways, that's off topic. I love Eric All. But, wow. They went Mozzie Smith in the first round. So they have 2 Michigan players, as they're saying on Twitter. He's a third-round tight end 7 or 8, according to James. Grant says, how could you over Darnell? And to that I say, I just don't know. I mean, we all know this, but Darnell Washington, you're looking at someone who is built like that, who is 21 years old, 6'7", 269 pounds, and is just truly an unseen athlete. Look at that, a 9.78. Vertical, whatever, but the broad jump, a 4.65 40 at that size. Let me see if I can find a video of him just destroying a sled. Look at this. He can block, I will say that. I mean... And then they're they're trying so hard, but they just can't. That's Michael Mayer, by the way, who is a very good blocking tight end. And he just can't move it like Darnell can. I mean, it's child's play for him. I don't know. Maybe there's something about Darnell that we don't know. Injuries or... But I fail to see how Darnell can't contribute on an NFL team at the very worst as a blocker. I think Mercedes Lewis is a good comp for him, and I'm just shocked. This is a very good tight end class. I just feel like the order that the tight ends have gone is interesting. Bills pick is in. You know what, James? We'll stick around for the Bills pick, and we'll talk about it. We've had some fun with the quizzes, but I'm going to stretch my neck out for a sec. I've been leaning forward. Bills picking at 59. Bengals right after. We're almost at the end of round 2. It's hard to believe. Round 2 has really flown by. I don't know, man. We're having a good time right now. This has been a fun draft. What would you guys say has been the most shocking pick so far of round 2? Drop it down in the chat. Most shocking pick. I think, honestly, the Cowboys pick might be up there for me. Seahawks taking a running back was bold. I don't know. Sam Laporta to the Lions was shocking. There have been, teams have their own boards. I think if there's anything we can learn from this draft is that at the end of the day, this is someone that aspires to be in sports media. But the people in sports media don't know anything. We don't know their boards. We don't know which players teams like. All we have access to is the combine and tape. But the conclusions that we come to that are different than front offices. And so, like with Will Levis, everyone just assumed, Will Levis, toolsy guy. He's going to go early. Someone's going to want to take a risk on him. But none of the teams thought that way. They thought that way about Anthony Richardson. But it's clear that most teams saw Will Levis as a second-round guy. So that's why you have picks like Luke Schoonmaker. Schoonmaker. I might have gotten his name wrong. I have my TV on pretty low right now so you guys can hear me and not the TV. My small TV's speakers aren't the greatest, so when it gets too loud, it gets rumbly, to say the least. But here's the Bills pick. Fred Jackson making the pick. I love it. Another throwback. I'm loving all these late 2000s, early 2010s players that they're bringing out. Okay, they're doing the most, though, when it comes to hyping up the crowd. I mean, I get it, I guess, but you see the Chiefs fan giving the thumbs down. Chiefs Kingdom, baby. Let's go. It's not as bad as the Vikings guy that they brought out last year in the second round when we picked Ed Ingram. That was a moment. Ooh. 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 Dang, man. That's a good pick. Dare I say we're having a Bills W here in round 2? I mean, talk about... I think most people had him as the top interior lineman in this class. James, I know you've complained about the Bills line for a long time. And they go get a good one in Osiris Torrance. All right, that is a good pick. Jesse, we're cooking. That Dalton Kincaid and Osiris Torrance. James, that literally sounds like a dream draft for you. Like, I think if you would have told me you would get Kincaid and Torrance, I would have said, yeah, good luck with that. All right. What a pick for the Bills, man. You know, at the end of the day, I can have my own agendas. I can have my favorite teams and whatnot. But sometimes you just got to love football. And I think, I don't know, it's an exciting pick for the Bills. They've done a good job in this draft. We said that they needed to do a good job in this draft. They've done a great job. They have hit 2 home runs. They're 2 for 2. Bengals go DJ Turner, Michigan. No one cares. Whatever. Let's see who this player was that we missed in the quiz. We're going to do one more quiz, and then we might wrap things up soon. James said, I thought we would have to pick between the two at best. I feel like that's the consensus for most people. I really don't know that there was anyone that could have foreseen you guys getting both. You addressed 2 major needs with some great picks. You know, Grant, maybe there's an evil part of me that it does bring pain, but right now I'm Dr. Pigskin. I'm not Eric Tionkson. And sure, there's an overlap between the two. But at the end of the day, no matter what, no matter if I'm Eric or the doctor, football is football. And you just have to accept the league for as it is. And you have to see all these events transpire before your eyes. And just at the end of the day, it's all part of the experience of being a fan. Sometimes the bad guys win. And for me, the Bills are the bad guys. For a lot of people, the Bills are the good guys. So either the good guys are going to win for a lot of people and the bad guys will win, or the other way around. And it just adds to the richness and spiciness. Derek Sherrod. Yeah, I was not getting him. I remember seeing him in Madden. I was not getting him. We're going to do one more. We're going to skip 2012 because that one was almost a little too good of a class. And we're going to go to a class that is known for some epic busts. And we're going to go to 2013. That's going to be the last quiz we're going to do for today. May probably stick around for a few more picks. This one is tough. They're not giving the position or the college for this one. All right, this is a good one to end on. This one is going to be tough. But the Jaguars pick is in. Let's dive right in. First overall pick, Eric Fisher out of Central Michigan, a tackle. He was a starter at best. Definitely not worth the first overall pick. But he's not as bad as the next guy that went. That's Luke Jokel. I don't know how to spell his name. I know it's him. Oh, man. You want to talk about one of the most slept-on busts ever? I know that's a weird way to put it, but when people talk about the biggest busts, they don't really talk about Luke Jokel or the next guy, Dion Jordan. Oh, man. Can we get some thoughts for last night's reaction? Bijan. I got you, Grant. After this quiz, we'll get some Bijan talk in. I'm always down to talk Bijan. We get probably a Hall of Famer from this class in Lane Johnson. Good pick for the Eagles. Still popping in the league. Lions go Ziggy Ansah. It might be Ezekiel, but I'm just going to type Ziggy because it's easier at 5. He panned out. He was good when he was healthy. Browns at 6. Is that Justin Gilbert? No, that was next year. Who did the Browns take at 6? Barkevius Mingo. I don't know how to spell his first name. There's no other Mingo in this class. I'm pretty sure he's like a human trafficker. I might look that up later. Yeah, he sounds like he's a terrible person, and he was also not a good player. Cardinals. Cardinals took Jonathan Cooper, I believe, out of Bama. Rams took Greg Robinson, right? Auburn guy. Was that next year? That was next year, was it? It was not Robert Quinn. Who did the Rams take at 8? And I don't have the position or the college to help me. I feel like it was a lineman, right? Like Greg Robinson. I'm not going to do that. That might give me another Robinson. Jets at 9 has got to be D. Milliner. Another bust. I mean, look at some of these names in the draft, man. It's not good. Titans go Chance Warmack. We have one definitive hit, one player that was good for a while, and one somewhat starter. DJ Fluker for the Chargers. He was pretty good. DJ Hayden, or is it Kelvin Hayden? No, it's DJ Hayden. He had a crazy 40 time, but he was so bad. It was a classic Raiders pick. Jets again at 13. How did they? Oh, man. Panthers at 14. Was that Star Lutalele? Who I know James loves. It's got to be, right? He was at one point thought of as the first overall pick in this draft. Like in the middle of the college football season. Yep. I mean, he was fine. Definitely not worth a first round pick. Hint for 8 is Country Road. Dirt? Gravel? Rocks? Oh, man. Country Road. Take me home to the... Tavon Austin. You're right. One of the greatest college players ever. Great hint, Grant. Country Road. Tavon Austin, man. I wanted the Vikings to get him. We needed a wide receiver in this class. I believe this is the class we had the 3 first-round picks, which we'll get to. Vikings, and Vikings. Saints at 15. Well, we know the Bills at 16. It was the only first-round quarterback, E.J. Manuel. Steelers at 17. Oh, boy. This is a tough class, man. I'll get the Vikings ones. I'll try and get them in order. I believe it's Sharif Floyd first, who would have been so good if it wasn't for injuries. He was another guy. He was supposed to be like a top 5 pick in this draft. But then he had injury concerns. We took him anyways. When he played, he was a stud. He was so good. But he ended up getting injured, and he sued the Vikings. There's like a lawsuit between him and the Vikings. It was a really interesting story. Then we get Xavier Rhodes, who was so good in his prime and then fell off so hard. But for 3-4 years, he was a top 5, top 3 corner. And then we get, in my opinion, the greatest kick returner of all time. Not returner. That belongs to Devin Hester. But I will argue that Cordero Patterson is the greatest kick returner of all time because his kick return stats are not only better than Hester's, but he did it in an era where kick returns are actively discouraged, where they moved where they kick it off, they changed the touchback, they tried to get rid of the return, make it so hard to return, and yet he dominated. I will argue that Cordero Patterson is the greatest kick returner of all time. Definitely not worth the 29th pick, but he was a beast. He still is. He ran back a kick this year for the Falcons. Oh, boy. I mean, honestly, it's starting to get slim pickings here. I'm trying to think of some of these players, man. Texans pick is in. Brian Cushing making the pick. I've still got a little over 4 minutes. We got to get some more, man. Like, is this when Tyler Eifert was drafted? Was he a first rounder? Yep. Bears at 20. I'm trying to think of like some of the players that were really hyped up. Texans, that was DeAndre Hopkins. Okay, that's a good player from this class. The Rams had 2 first rounders, Tavon Austin and 30. Cowboys 31, Ravens 32. It's also tough because, like, when I was younger, man, like, after the Vikings pick, I remember I had to go to bed. Now, granted, it's 3 picks, but this was back when I was in middle school. I would have been in 6th grade, I think, for this draft. Is that right? Yeah, 6th grade. Falcons at 22. Grant, I know you know this one. Giants at 19. Like who are some of these players? This one is tough. I'm not going to lie. I was expecting to do a little better than this. Also, the Broncos are about to make their first pick of the whole draft. Their franchise has been interesting. Oh, boy. I'm not going to lie. I might take the L on this soon. This is tough. And I still want to talk about Bijan. Jets at 13. So there's a name that's coming to my mind with the Jets at 13, but I don't think he was taken that high, and it's Stephen Hill. He was a wide receiver out of Georgia Tech. I'm going to put it, it's not him, but he was a famous bust for the Jets. Was it Sheldon Richardson? It definitely was. Yeah, that was a good pick for them. Marvin Mims to the Broncos. Feel like wide receiver isn't their biggest need, but go off. They might be trading Jerry Jeudy or Cortland Sutton. Their names have been thrown around a little bit, but they also have Tim Patrick coming back, which people forget about. Tim Patrick is really good. Chat, do you have any hints for me for any of these? I mean, I've still got 12 left here. I've got like a minute and a half. This is tough. Was Bradley Roby for the Broncos? No, that would have been next year. I'm just thinking of guys. I think I'm thinking of next year's class. Falcons pick was actually good. Well, it wasn't Vic. I know exactly who it is. We were just talking about him. Nope. Wow. Neither James or I know. It was an actually good Falcons pick. I don't know why, but I'm thinking defense. This player had brothers in the NFL too. There's no way it's Jaquiz Rogers. That would have been too late, I think. I think he came into the league earlier. I also don't think he was a first rounder. No, it's not him. He had brothers in the NFL. See, I want to say it is Matthews, but it's not because he was a lot higher pick, and he would have been next year. This is killing me, man. I've got 24 seconds. I just want to get this one. We're in round 3 of the draft now, too. Brothers in the NFL. I've got 10 seconds. Steelers 7. Oh, man. All right, well, we're about to face the music. We're about to figure out who it is. Wow, Desmond Trufant. You're absolutely right. Bjorn Werner, the Germinator. Sylvester Williams. He was mocked to the Vikings. Kenny Vaccaro. All right, so these are all names I know. Oh, I'm sure the Georgia boys are mad at me that I got this one wrong. Sackman Jones. That's right. I know Sackman Jones. I know Georgia ball. Eric Reed, great player. Justin Pugh, Kyle Long. So the back end of the draft was a lot better, it seems like. Alec Ogletree, another Georgia boy. Travis Frederick, great center for a long time. Matt Elam, didn't amount to much. All right, you know what? We'll take a 63. It's above average. That was a tough quiz. That's a good quiz to end on. So to wrap up, we'll just talk a few more things here. The draft, we're now in round 3. They're singing Proud to be American right now. But let's talk about Bijan. So Bijan Robinson, as everyone watching knows, it looks like they're recognizing veterans right now. Pretty cool moment there at the draft. But Bijan goes to the Falcons. Running back, definitely not a need for them. Tyler Algier had a great rookie season for them. However, we all know my feelings on Bijan Robinson. We know how much I love him. I think he's the best player in the draft, even better than Jalen Carter. I would say he might be the best running back prospect since Adrian Peterson. Now, he's replacing a guy that had a good year. Not just 1,000 yards, but almost 5 yards a carry. Only 3 touchdowns, but whatever, right? Great season for Tyler Algier. The Atlanta Falcons are a run-first team without a doubt. Now, they have bigger needs than running back. I'm not going to deny that. And I will argue this from both sides because I really can see both sides. I know Grant is strong. Well, he's pretty strong in favor of Bijan. Henry is strongly against Bijan. I'm looking at the Buccaneers. That's my bad. Sorry. So you add in Bijan Robinson to an Arthur Smith offense that is known to maximize production out of running. You add the most talented player in the draft, extremely talented running back. I have no doubt in my mind he's going to be dominant day one in the NFL. You pair him with Algier, so he won't have to carry the ball 350 times. You can keep him fresh, but he's going to get it done. He's also a great receiver. He's the threat in the receiving game. If you want to get funky with it, you can even line him up in the slot. Running behind a great offensive line. Looks like they already have Bergeron penciled in as left guard. So they've got Matthews, Bergeron, Dahlman, Lindstrom, McGarry. Great O-line. I like the Jonnu Smith trade. I do. Better blocking tight end, scheme familiarity. A lot more 12 personnel. 2 tight ends with Kyle Pitts, Jonnu Smith. Smith is a better blocker. Let's run the ball, right? Bijan Robinson is I would be shocked if he didn't win Offensive Rookie of the Year. And I would go further as to say he will be in the running for Offensive Player of the Year. I think he's that good, and I think he comes into an offense where he's going to dominate. Fantasy football players, like, seriously, I would strongly consider taking Bijan Robinson top 3 in the draft, maybe top 5. I really think he's going to be that good. The Falcons get a great player. It fits their identity, what they want to do. They know they've got an amazing player with him. However, on the other side, this is a team that has holes elsewhere. Their wide receivers are not ideal. Drake London flashed. I think he can be good. I think he could be a legit NFL solid, maybe even plus starter. Mac Hollins, Scotty Miller, however, ruh-roh, not the greatest. Now, if you get some more from Kyle Pitts, that makes it a little bit easier. You stomach it. Ritter, we'll see what he has this year. I like Ritter as potentially a starter, but I don't know about how much else beyond that. He did flash some. I think we just need to see a full season from him. I won't make any definitive statement on Desmond Ritter yet. I was fairly high on him coming out of the draft, but by that I mean I think he was one of my top quarterbacks in the draft, and that was a poor quarterback class. The real problem is right here. So, the Falcons made a lot of moves in free agency to shore up their defense, which, if we just go click on the Falcons team page from last year and look at defense, points against actually better than you'd think, 23rd of 32. They have had a historically bad pass rush, though. I mean, 6 was their leader in sacks, Grady Jarrett. Then Lorenzo Carter with 4. It's bad. They had 21 sacks last season. That's terrible. I'm sorry. It is. That's a little over 1 a game. Now, that will improve based off the signings that they've made. Calais Campbell is not the player he used to be. Still a good player. He can still start on most teams. David Onyemata, same thing. Younger, obviously. He'd start on a lot of teams. Grady Jarrett is good. I don't like the Bud Dupree signing, to be honest. I really don't. I think it might be an upgrade, but it's also Bud Dupree who's on the wrong side of 30 and who, quite honestly, has just not been good ever since leaving Pittsburgh. And again, I think it goes back to how Pittsburgh coaches and having Cam Hayward taking up space. Now, he's been injured some, but he's just objectively been a worse player since leaving Pittsburgh. And the older he gets, I don't see how that doesn't continue. Is he an upgrade? Yes, but by how much, I don't know. And I think if you're a team that's trying to rebuild, it's a little curious that you bring in someone like him. I feel like he's a Band-Aid. Caden Ellis, Troy Anderson, there's some potential in this linebacking core. I was very high on Troy Anderson coming out of the draft. Athletic guy. Played some running back. He's got potential. Lorenzo Carter, I don't love that he's starting still. I don't think he's a starting quality player. The secondary is where it's a little interesting, though. A.J. Terrell is a good corner. He's not quite... I don't think he's quite as good as he was in 2021. I think he's somewhere in between 22 and 21. 2022, he is a little bit down. I think he can be better than last year, but I don't know that he'll be as good as he was earlier. Richie Grant showed a lot of potential. One of the top safeties in the draft. And Jesse Bates, one of the best safeties in the league. Jeff Okuda's a lottery ticket. Mike Hughes, I'm sorry, he's not good. I hate to break it to you guys. As a Vikings fan, he's just not good. So this Falcons team, they still haven't picked a defender yet. And most of the signings they've made are players that are aging or have already maximized their value. Like, even as great as Jesse Bates is, he's a bit of an overpay. Now, you had to do it to get him, and I don't hate it, right? You want to bring in talent. He's still only 26, but it's a lot of money to tie up to one safety. So I guess what I'm saying is the Falcons, they could have done worse. They could have done better, and I know that's a lame stance to have, but I still think there's some work to do with this roster. Grant asks, how was Jarvis a bust? I don't know, man. I remember being high on him way back when I was a young kid, too, thinking he was going to be a beast. in the NFL. I believe he has the single season record for sacks for UGA, if I'm not mistaken. But he never had more than 2 in the NFL. It's befuddling. 17th overall pick, first round for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Eagles pick is in. I think this will be our last pick. It's about time to wrap up. I've got to bounce soon. It's 9:23, but to everyone that's been popping in and out of the chat, tuning in, I want to thank you guys so much. I've had a lot of fun doing this, and I hope to do more of these in the future. I hope to go live on a more consistent basis. The videos will still be coming too. I'll figure out what my next video is going to be because they're a process, as I will oblige Grant's request. I'll look at Jarvis Jones' college stats. But videos usually take about a month to cook up. And I have a few topics in the chamber already. I'll think about which one will be the most relevant to talk about. But don't get me wrong, the videos will still be coming, but I do love going live. I think it's a great way to give content more consistently, get some interaction with my friends, my followers. So shout out to you guys for sticking around. It's been a great draft, and I mean, yeah, look at these college stats. 13.5, 14.5 for sacks, 19.5, and 24.5 for TFLs. Just nuts. Absolutely nuts. A monster. Doing it in the SEC. All right, 66th pick is going to be our last one. Trent Cole making the call for the Eagles. And it's Tyler Steen, Alabama tackle. And I like it because the Eagles' O-line is getting older. They lost some guys. Are they doing back-to-back? They went back to... Wait. Hold up. So did the Eagles have back-to-back picks? They did. So Tyler Steen at 65. I didn't hear what he said for 66. Sidney Brown. So a tackle and a DB. And I like it because those are positions that they have talent in, but they're usually a little bit of their older positions. Kelsey might be gone soon. They lost Sayamalu. They're going to need someone. They need depth. And then Sidney Brown, Darius Slay's on a 2-year deal, but he won't be there forever. Same with James Bradbury. Solid picks. That's a good way to wrap things up. Like I said, thank you guys so much for coming in, hanging out today. We were live for a decent amount of time, almost 2.5 hours. So, I don't know. That was awesome. Got to do some quizzes, talk some draft. I'll try and go live again sometime soon. We'll see what the occasion will be, what we'll be doing. But, yeah, doctor out, y'all. Y'all have a good night.